because I think the first thing, so I love how you differentiate the electorate of the right and the electorate from the left from the social hold-ons of the Democratic and Republican parties. That's an important thing that we need to differentiate just straight out of the gate. I think the next important sort of distinction we need to make is the difference between progressive and conservative versus left and right. You can be a Republican progressive. There's not very many of them right now. That's just not how we're constellated. But you can be a Republican progressive, and you can be a Democratic conservative. There's a lot more of those than there are Republican progressives right now, right? So I agree with you that it's going to come, this new form is going to come out of progressivism, either on the left or the right, preferably both, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come from the left, because I personally think that the left has a vested interest in sort of keeping their, hands around green, because it is a new emergent, historically speaking, and it's still finding its feet. And it's still falling on its face like every fucking day, right? So it's still finding its legs. And the left is going to be, sort of necessarily interested in preserving green as a morphic field for, into perpetuity. I think my prediction was, before the Trump phenomenon, I talked about this in another show, my prediction was after Bush and Cheney completely crashed the GOP brand. I mean, if you remember when, Bush was going out.
I remember vividly.
I mean, Bush had the lowest approval rating in history when he was leaving his office. The GOP brand was just smashed to smithereens. So what did the GOP do over the next 8 years? They just became an anti-Obama party. Right?
Yeah, opposition.
Buying their time as an anti-Obama party. Mitch McConnell famously says, I'm going to make him a one-term president, and, the whole thing, that's kind of par for the course these days. But, you can start to see those fractures. I was convinced, Keith, that the GOP brand was so damaged that if they wanted to continue to have any, demographically, the writing is on the wall. I mean, their main demographics are shrinking. Minority populations continue to grow. So it's like, this is going to actually force them to leapfrog the left. And the Republicans are going to be the first integral party, because they're going to be the ones who are forced to find ways to interpret their views and their values across multiple altitudes just to get the votes they need to stay in power. But instead, Trump came along, and instead of evolving, my experience from where I'm sitting, this was a massive regression, a massive populist-based regression back into red and amber. And that pushed back any hope of the GOP becoming an integral party for at least 10, 12. I mean, I don't want to overestimate the attention span of Americans, which is like, sort of the size of a mosquito's usually, especially when we're in big groups. But, I think that this is going to do some serious damage to the brand. And that's why we have things like QAnon and other conspiracy narratives that are creating this connective tissue that the GOP themselves isn't able to sort of maintain in their own party because of, again, the demographic issues and the branding issues and all that. So I still think it's possible that the Republicans could be like when I'm 60 years old, maybe they'll be the first integral party. Maybe it won't be, the left, but I do know one thing, it's going to emerge out of exactly these kinds of conversations and these kinds of life conditions.
Well, I agree. Though the Republicans are good at being an oppositional party. Mm-hmm. They dominated in the midterm elections after Obama got healthcare passed. And they won the PR battle, so they went to their playbook and doubled down on it. And then later on, Trump, when he won beating Hillary, went to the playbook and doubled down on it. Mm-hmm. After the last Republican defeats, and when they've done the post defeat processing, inevitably when they do the autopsy, inevitably they come up with, we have to package ourselves differently. They've never come up, and this is since Reagan. They've never come up with, we need to change substantively.
It's all translation, not transformation. Yeah.
And so I think that what progressives have a chance to do now is go, okay, this is a wicked problem. And it's not just about getting external constraints on corporations and on excesses and so on. It's about finding another political alternative to trying to deal with Republican legislatures who aren't representing their electorate. Um, so let's us represent those electorate.
Yeah.
Let's us reach out, with respect and positive intent. Uh, let's have the dialogues with the Republican electorate, not with the Republican politicians or with Fox News, other than if they're going to have Pete Buttigieg and others, great, go on, tell the truth, do your best. The moral standards of the progressives right now are so rigorous, very much like the difference between Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow.
Right.
Rachel Maddow, if she tells even the slightest lie, will be falling all over herself, apologizing. John Hannity will be lying for the rest of his life.
Well, one is evidence-based and one is narrative-based. And I don't always agree with Rachel, but she does her homework. And she is presenting this as like, let's follow this evidence trail. Whereas Hannity is entirely mythic narrative, like, let me tell you the shape of things. And, yeah.
And so we need mythic narratives that are consistent. This is why we have 4 quadrants.
Right.
I mean, the mythic narrative is beautiful. It's the upper left and the lower left in ways that speak to us in the deep unconscious. And so those need to be cross-validated with the right the right quadrants. And that's a really powerful story. Now, that story, again, does not change conservative minds, but it might be enough of us, it might change enough progressive minds so that the power that they have now, being the president and the House, use that power to reach out and help that electorate. Mm-hmm. And then do the PR to let them know who is helping them.
Right.
Okay? And that means you got to do attack ads against their representatives if they do things that are in their worst interest, and they need to do support ads for them when they've done something. We've done it, and now we have to do the PR thing, and to do that we got to get a lot of money. I mean, in the current system.
Yeah. Keith, it's interesting. I'm starting to think that just based on how everything has ramped up, right, just over the last several years, it's just gone from like 0 to 60 and, really, really damn quickly. I'm starting to think that this election turnout, which looks increasingly like it's probably going to be a stalemate for at least the next 2 years. I mean, the chances of winning both Senate seats in Georgia is really slim.
Slim to none, yeah.
I'm starting to think this is like, Ken called Trump an evolutionary correction. I'm starting to think political stalemate might be the next, evolutionary correction, because this is like, okay, guys, we're not going to get shit done over the next couple years. So let's settle the fuck down. Let's just chill for a bit. Yeah, we're going to be in gridlock, but you know what? That is probably going to create less animosity than if the Democrats came in with this huge mandate and started doing all these transformative policies that the conservatives, meanwhile, are still 57% of conservatives believe in QAnon. So 57% of conservatives believe that most Democrats are part of this evil network of pedophiles, right?
64% of them trust Fox News. Right. 64%.
That's right.
So I think no matter what the Democrats do, they're going to be attacked and vilified. Attacking and vilifying is a core foundation of the Republican strategy for keeping power and getting more power. I think that the Democratic response to being attacked and vilified can be way more sophisticated.
Yes.
I think the Democratic response to this victory can be way more sophisticated. And I think that when that happens, when it gets to the point where you can't get power from a conservative basis by attacking people or attacking your own electorate and then blaming the Democrats successfully for it, they're going to have to come up with something different. But until that formula stops working, and it's been working now for 70 years for them, until that blatantly doesn't work, and it has to not work over a number of election cycles. It can't just be 1 or 2 elections. It needs to not work consistently and substantively. Then what that does is maybe they go, okay, we're going to put David Brooks in charge of the Republican Party.
Right.
Okay, David Brooks in charge of the Republican Party is a formidable opponent. Put David Brooks in charge of the Republican Party, they very much might win the next couple of elections.
It's not going to be David Brooks. It's going to be Tucker Carlson, or it's going to be Crenshaw. That's my prediction.
I think that's an accurate prediction. And I think what that's doing is what the Republicans have always done, doubling down on the strategy that Newt Gingrich was the first person to really start saying, I'm not going to go with any kind of custom. Right. I'm not going to cooperate on a bill that helps people if we lose political power. I'm going to shut down the country and cost the country billions and billions of dollars just to make a political point. I mean, when that began to happen, it was very much like when the drug companies said, yeah, we're going to get our legislation that we don't have to reveal prices. We're going to blatantly gouge every American so that Americans pay 3, 4, 10, 15, 20 times as much for drugs as the rest of the world. And fuck you, we're doing it because we can. It's power politics. That's the way it is. They need external constraint. That's an unconscious request for external constraint.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Green does not like playing power politics. Green needs to learn how to take another step towards teal and play power politics until you have the external constraints in place so that the people that you're constraining can act in virtuous manners. Okay? That's just necessary.
I want to try to do the best I can to steelman the perspective of some people in our audience who might be critical of what you just said. That sure. Green is not so good at playing the power game. Because what they would do is they would like, wait. Let's look at something like critical race theory, which a lot of integralists would say, yeah, there's a lot of problematic shit in CRT that we really would need to be careful about. Mm-hmm. So what my integral conservative friends would say is that this has been nothing but power plays as they're pushing things like CRT through academia and through pop culture, which is where the leftist power really does, reside.
That's true.
The leftists don't have a lot of power in the right-hand quadrants. They don't have a lot, this has been for the last 40 years, has been a largely conservative techno-economic base and a largely liberal progressive culture. I think we kind of need to reverse the polarities. You know what I mean? I kind of think we need more conservative sensibilities in culture, and we need way more progressive policies in the lower right quadrant. So, I want to do the best I can to, again, just steelman the people who would disagree with us when it comes to how both of these parties are wielding their power, because I do see serious issues with some of the power that's being amassed behind the woke narrative, which I see as just another part, it's part of the unintegrated polarity along with MAGA, right? I mean, I think that these are just sort of the undigested meat of an unenfolded politics, and both of which oftentimes run off of a politics of hatred. And for me, the opposite of a politics of hatred is not like this Marianne Williamson politics of love crap, which is all that's going to do is make a conservative want to punch you in the face, right?
After he throws up.
Politics of love. It's a politics of enfoldment, right? It's like, let's find a way to disagree, but stay connected somehow. That's why, like, when I'm having a political conversation, it's so obvious we're not going to see eye to eye. I will try to transition to like, what's the best movie you've seen in the life? You know what I mean? Like
shared values.
What music are you into? Just to like, we need to reshore up our human connection. So then we can get back to politics.
Shared values.
Yes.
Bruce Springsteen is wildly popular with Red.
Yeah.
Okay? Wildly popular. And so we had, there's no cognitive dissonance there. Now,